Welcome to Tracking the Cats. I'm Bob Sabin along with Steve White, and we're here every 2 weeks giving you all things Catamount. And as usual, we are brought to you by Stanberry Insurance, covering all your insurance needs. In Silva is their home office, and then they have Waynesville, Highlands, and Clyde is their newest office. So contact Stanberry for any insurance need that you have, commercial, residential, whatever. Steve, we got an exciting announcement to make today. We've been talking to the folks over at WWCU, the campus radio station at Western Carolina, and they have agreed they want to broadcast our podcast. We're going to send it to them after we record it, and they will be broadcasting starting in January. Look for Tracking the Cats on the radio. WWCU in Cullowhee, and it's an FM station heard across Jackson, Macon, and part of Swain counties. Good reception. You'll be able to hear it every Saturday morning from 9 to 10 or 10 to 11. The exact time is yet to be determined, but it'll be on Saturday mornings, either at 9 or 10. So, and since we do it every other week, you will hear our podcast repeated the second week before we do our next podcast. And sometimes they may even play back episodes like the one we had with Kirk Roach or others that are not time constrained on recent events. So,
yeah, Bob, I can pick them up over on I-40 in Haywood County, between Canton and Asheville. So they have a great range. They really do. It's a good sound.
That's good. So you'll be able to pick them up starting in January, probably around January 15th, somewhere in that area. Just depends on when the students come back and they're ready to start rolling. So let's talk about sports. The most recent event of consequence is the football game that wrapped up the season at VMI up in beautiful Lexington. I hear that it's beautiful. I have yet to visit Lexington, but that's one of my not necessarily bucket list, but things that I'm going to accomplish.
Yeah, it's a neat town. I've been there, it seemed like hundreds of times, traveling over 40 some years with Catamount Athletics, football, basketball, baseball, and two campuses that actually butt up against each other, VMI in Washington and Lee, one of the oldest universities in the nation. Beautiful little college town. I really enjoy going there. Just so much history, those museums, quite an atmosphere. It really is. Yes.
Well, we came away with a pretty good win. We were, I think, 24-point favorites or something like that. So we covered for you betting fans. We finally we got one over the last few weeks that we were able to manage. Watching it here at home, it seemed to me that we kind of dominated all phases of the game.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. We didn't have the problems that we've had like 2 years ago when we went up there and they knocked us out of the FCS playoffs. And again, Tiger was the difference, as he has been most of the season. 330 yards passing, 3 passing, 1 running score, 4 touchdowns total. A new Southern Conference record for touchdown passes in a season. Unbelievable. 38 touchdown passes in only 9 games. For the last time, what you think, what could have been if he had not missed those first 3 games of the season. Yeah, he leads the FCS in passing yardage, Bob, over 3,500 yards, completion percentage, almost 75%, 38 touchdown passes, and the least number of interceptions. Just staggering figures for Tiger Dickens.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, that's the last game that we're going to see him perform in. Unfortunately, I know he's got an agent apparently, and will be registering with the portal. So we wish him well. I hope to see success like with Desmond Reed and a couple of those guys up at Pitt who have done well that moved up with Cade Bell. So yeah. We have some other folks who are, I think, going to be announcing in the portal too. Have you taken a look at that?
Yes, I have. I had Malik Knights in there. There'll be several more, and some will get offers, some will not. This is just a crazy time. And again, the only good thing about it, the portal, is it'll only be for like a 10-day period, the first week in January. They're not going to have a transfer portal after spring practice like we had last year. So that
Right.
gives coaches a chance to get everything established. I know who's on their team in spring practice, not having to wait for the portal at the end of practice. But yeah, that's it's life in the don't call it the fast lane, but life on our level, FCS level right now, and even on the Group of Five level, it's somewhat impacted right there. And again, it's sort of I hate to say this, but sort of like we're a junior college program, not on that level, but junior college program as far as developing talent, 2 years, and if they're really outstanding, there's a chance they're going to be gone. So that's just
Yeah.
the reality. We can't do anything about it except maybe, I'll come up with a couple zillion dollars and be able to pay everybody an absorbent amount of money and keep them here. But we probably know that's not going to happen.
Well, let's talk about that briefly because some of our competitive Southern Conference teams do have more money to spend. On East Tennessee, I understand is has got some good money.
Yes.
Tennessee Tech joining us next year, and we'll talk a little bit more about them in a minute. But we we have developed over 5 years a reputation as a good football team, particularly on offense. And I think we could bring some guys down from the portal that know that they're not going to make as much money as they had hoped in some of the bigger conferences in FBS schools, and then be able to exploit that talent for a year or two. What do you think about that?
Yeah, showcase their abilities with our offensive season, with our offensive scheme, with Coach Kerwin Bell loving to throw the football like he does. It should be very attractive to quarterbacks and wide receivers, especially. And also giving defensive players a great opportunity to play too. But yeah, it works both ways. Unfortunately, it's probably about a 75-25 situation to us when it comes
Yeah.
to the portal and so forth. But yeah, it's happened before. We've gotten some players back over the years after they left to come back. And so we'll see how that pans out. Yeah.
One of the things I wish we had better conversation about along the lines of football is the defense. Hopefully we can get things cranked up. I don't want to call anybody or anything out, but we certainly struggled particularly with the long pass plays this year. I was impressed with the way we tightened up on the run games.
Yeah.
We were much better, particularly on the short down the middle runs. Only a few breakaways on those kinds of plays.
Yeah, yeah. People talk about our defensive backs they can't cover, but that's a double-edged sword there. You've got to be able to put pressure on the opposing quarterback, not to let them establish the running game where you can't rush the passer, and getting to that passer. How many times? It seems like many times the quarterback could stand there and go eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and find a wide receiver open. That type of stuff. But I'm not blaming it entirely on our defensive backs. I think the linebackers and the defensive front has a lot to do with that. So there's a lot of work to be done. We know that. I don't know if the scheme is the problem or it's the talent level. That's not my call there. But yeah, that would help a lot if we could just come up with a defense strong enough to complement our offense. We're on our way again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could have won against Elon or Gardner Webb
Yes.
early in the season had our defense been better, even without Tiger.
Yes,
So,
yeah, right. 35-7 lead against Gardner Webb. Elon we sort of broke down in that second half. Bob, I
yeah.
want to get back to one thing here. We just talked
Yes.
about the season and so forth. Is that 48-6 win over VMI wrapped up a third straight 7-win season. Now we haven't done that. That's the most wins in a 3-season stretch. Now, granted, we were used to only play 10 ball games a year for many seasons, and that changed in the 80s. We went to 11-game schedule. But the most wins in a 3-season stretch since the 82, 83, 84 seasons under Coach Bob Waters. So that's 21 wins in that three. That it was the only thing to come close to matching those great seasons conference runner-up in 82, playoffs in 83, conference runner-up in 84 under Coach Bob Waters. So that's I think that's significant.
I agree. Definitely agree. And with the 12-game season becoming permanent under the NCAA rules, we're going to have some changes to how we look at things over the coming years, particularly with the addition of Tennessee Tech.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about adding Tennessee Tech and how that is going to affect how we play. You had a conversation with some of the Southern Conference folks to talk about next season. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, let's look at that 26 scenario there. I know you talk about this. We've got a lot of talented players coming back, scheduled return. I think 8 on offensive starters, 7 on D. We know that won't happen, but we know about the portal and so forth. But the schedule, as I say, 12-game schedule next season. Right now, we've got 6 home, 6 away. So, the second straight year, we've had 6 home games, and that's great. Non-conference games, we play at a very strong Cincinnati team in the Big 12, always strong FSC team, Eastern Kentucky. My understanding is that's who we're going to open the season with, first game of the season in August, what they call 0 week against Eastern Kentucky. Now, that's assuming that the stadium will be complete and we'll have all our facilities, the skybox area and everything, which right now I understand it's a little bit ahead of schedule, but should something happen, that would flip maybe the Eastern Kentucky game up there, which would give us 3 straight road games to open the season and give them time. But I don't think that's going to happen. Then we got Presbyterian, who went 10-2 this season, missed the playoffs, but they beat Mercer and Furman. We beat them 77-7 or something like that about 4 years ago when those guys were freshmen at Presbyterian. And Campbell, again, we go down there this season again, and they'll come back here the following year in 27. They beat us 2 years ago, and they took us right down to the final gun this year. Tennessee Tech comes into the conference next season as our 10th football playing member, which means a 9-game conference schedule. But
next year.
Yeah, they come in next year, yeah. But that means because of prior game contracts with non-conference opponents, money games, guarantee games, most of the teams are unable to play a 9-game conference schedule in the coming season because of that commitments. That usual round robin schedule we had will begin in 2027 when you'll play, somebody will have 5 home games, somebody will have 4 home games, vice versa, 5 road games, 4 home games, this type of thing. But that will not start until 27. But Tennessee Tech will be playing everybody in the conference next year. Now, their game with UT Chattanooga next year, with Tennessee Chattanooga, will actually be a non-conference game because of some schedule obligations and so forth. So we'll see how that is. Now, everyone is going to be able to play a 9-game conference schedule next year in the league. So, but all the Tennessee Tech games are going to count as a conference game, except for the Chattanooga game. That doesn't affect us. And again, which SoCon teams we play and where we play them, that will be announced probably January, February, and we'll know by no later than the 1st of March, where we're going to be in game times and so forth. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it looks pretty interesting for the now, my math says that if we've got 3 or 4 non-conference games.
Yeah, we have 4. We have Eastern Kentucky.
We're not going to play somebody in the conference then? If we're playing 8 conference games plus Tennessee Tech, we're not going to play somebody in the Southern Conference.
No. You will have that. That's it. We just don't know right now how that's going to work out. Yeah, we have 4 non-conference games, and for some reason I think it's VMI. We're not going to play them, but I don't hold me on that one. But that's just a guess.
Oh, great.
Yeah, trying to look at this thing. Yeah, well, that is Tennessee Tech will be playing everybody, the new member, but that doesn't necessarily that. Everybody's going to play everybody. That doesn't work out if you've got 4 non-conference games. Some just have 3 non-conference games, but because of contractual obligations, we have 4 non-conference games
Yep.
next year.
Yep. Okay. Just wanted to clear
Yeah.
that up.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about the playoffs that we won't be part of.
Yeah. Mercer is the number 6 seed representing our conference, and they get a first round bye, Bob, and will play the winner of the Drake, South Dakota game. Drake, the winner of the Pioneer League, which was Presbyterian Davidson's league. They'll be playing them in Macon. That'll be a home game in 2 weeks, so they won't have to play the first week. Should they win that one, that would probably send, which I think they'll be favored in that ball game, whether it's Drake or South Dakota. That would probably send the Bears to Montana. And we know all about going and playing the Grizzlies in Missoula. So that's probably what's going to happen, assuming something strange doesn't happen. But so Mercer's got their work cut out for them. It looks like a good first round matchup or a second round matchup for them. But that third round, the quarterfinals, that's another story going to Montana.
Well, to put a little point on that, Montana will most likely have to play South Dakota State, assuming they play well. South Dakota State plays New Hampshire in their first round.
Yeah.
And my guess is that South Dakota State has had tougher competition in this past year than New Hampshire has.
Yeah.
And it's going to be in South Dakota. So Montana has to get past South Dakota State. And, they lost to Montana State. Montana lost to Montana State this weekend.
So that's good. The Dakotas to Montana, that's FCS football. Tennessee Tech is not seeded. That was a surprise, really, but that tells you about the OVC, whatever that league is called now, the Big South OVC Combine, what have you. They're not seeded, and they have to play North Dakota, but I think that's going to be a home game for Tennessee Tech, the way I read it. Not North Dakota State, but North Dakota. And the Golden Eagles are favored to advance against the number 4 seed, Tarleton State, down in Texas. So Tarleton State is the number 4 seed. Very good. They just wore out Chattanooga this year when they played them. So they're a lot of people think they might be the best team. They might even be better than North Dakota State, but we know never to bet against North Dakota State in the FCS play. How many times did they won it?
Undefeated, and they look stronger than ever this year.
Yeah.
So but there's definitely good competition. The playoffs should be fun to watch, even watching from the outside. Unfortunately,
that's right. And how about Harvard and Yale? That's an interesting thing. First time the Ivy League has voted to play in the FCS playoffs, and also they're getting 2 teams in. Harvard was, ranked and was walking away with the Ivy League, and all of a sudden that great rivalry, Harvard and Yale, and that is a unique little football rivalry, more ways than one. But Yale upset Harvard, and so both teams got in. So what? How do you explain that?
I know. It's an interesting scenario. So maybe the playoffs will work out to be interesting in that fashion, and see some underdogs playing for some higher berths.
I just want to get in there one time and make something exciting happen. It's been a long time. 1983.
I know. Hopefully we get there. We've got the best chances that we've had in 30, 40 years, certainly 30 years over the last 5 years. So, one more win, dang it.
Yes.
Anyway, let's move on. We beat that dog or horse long enough.
To death. We've just pummeled it. Yeah. Cruelty to dumb animals. Yeah.
Are you talking about us?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking at basketball now, men's team and women's team. Let's start with men. Tough starting out of conference schedule. Looked pretty good against UNCA last week, and then not so good against Lipscomb on Saturday. There's a complete turnaround, whether it be turnovers, whether it be rebounding, whether it be scoring. One thing that I've noticed is a little bit of a lack of 3-point scoring from these guys so far.
About non-existent in that Lipscomb game. Bob, the thing about it is, people don't understand the strength of that Lipscomb program. They say, who is that, over in Nashville? They were 22-5 last season, went to the NCAA tournament, played Iowa State, a very strong game in the NCAA tournament. That's a
Yeah.
solid program. Even though they lost a lot of people, they've got it going over there. They don't have football, so basketball is their primary sport. They're also very good in baseball also. But
It's a pretty little campus on the south side of
oh
Nashville,
yeah,
too. I've driven through it a couple of
and
times.
lots of money there too. It really is.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we shot only 18% from the 3-point arc against Lipscomb. They scored 28 points off of our turn.
Turnovers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was the difference. Those two factors right there. Yeah.
Yep. So, and we continue with our tough schedule. We got High Point coming up this Saturday. I'm going to go over to Athens for the Georgia game later in December. So, it's going to be a test, but hopefully it's the test by fire to bring us up ready for the conference season.
Yeah, I like the new additions to our team. 8 new guys joining the 8 holdovers from last season. Coach Kraft is looking for the right combination in chemistry. He's playing 10 or 11 guys about the same amount of time right now in this spread, and that's what he's using his pre-conference schedule is now. We're now 3-3 and continuing a very, very challenging pre-conference schedule at highly regarded, that's an understatement, this Saturday. High Point is
High Point.
number 6 among the NCAA mid-majors, just behind Gonzaga, St. Mary's, these traditional mid-major powers that always do well in the NCAA tournament. A lot of coaches say that High Point is better than about half of the ACC teams this year. That's how tough they are. And they just do not lose at home where we've got to play. Then that gauntlet continues, road trips to USC upstate, which we have a very hard time beating anywhere. Then to Virginia Tech and Georgia before opening that Southern Conference schedule at home with Wofford on New Year's Eve, right? So a lot of work left for Coach Kraft and his team before we get into the conference schedule.
Yep. Coach Sip as well is looking at an improved team this year. Let's disregard Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And even UNC Asheville, they didn't play what I thought they were doing earlier with their first few games.
Yeah, we had three starters out for that game and key players. And Coach Sip's team 2-4 going into another tough game at West Georgia. We beat them at home last year, but West Georgia's really coming on among the FCS level programs right now. They're coming off a very encouraging performance at Wake Forest yesterday. It was an 11-point lead to an unbeaten 6-0 Wake Forest team. That was yesterday afternoon in Winston-Salem. Allie Hollifield, that transfer from Memphis, and the granddaughter of one of my 1960s classmates, former WCU football player, Dale Hollifield. She led offense with 17 points. She hit 5 threes. She's, like I say, transferred over from Memphis. Team still hampered by injuries, but we did get 6'2" post player Grace Pack back yesterday. She got back on the floor for the first time since late last season. Responded with some solid rebounding and scoring in limited minutes yesterday, but she will make a difference in that middle. She is very strong, can shoot 3-pointers, but she can go in there and command the board. So, and then Ellie Richardson, our starting point guard from Indiana, a freshman, really looked good early in the season. She was on the bench again for the second time in a row, and hopefully get her back. And Bob, they've got a nice road trip. I wish they would invite us. We could go down there and do the podcast with Coach Sip down in the Bahamas this weekend.
Yeah, I know. That's like fun. Tough chores because we open against Clemson, and then we have either Michigan State or Temple after that, depending on how the first round games go. But that sounds like a great opportunity for these ladies to get a little more experience. Like you said, after Wake Forest yesterday, not getting blown out against a very good team, and hopefully with possibly a win against West Georgia. I haven't looked at their schedule yet and see the strength of them. But yeah, we should definitely have an improved conference season, which is where it counts.
Yeah, then we got to make a road trip to Indiana, which will be a very tough one. I'm sure Ellie Richardson, that's where she's from, and that's probably part of playing them to give her some exposure up there. But again, the Southern Conference play begins the second week in January. And like I say, we hope we can get Coach Sip on after this Bahama road trip, the Nassau road trip, maybe next week. I don't know. That's up to you to figure that out. But we'd like to have an invitation to go with them to the Bahamas.
Well, I'm thinking about things for next year, like being at the Southern Conference football
Yeah,
presser in
first media
August.
day. Mhm.
Yeah, the media day. I'd love to get down there. So those are things that we're going to do as the podcast develops.
Right.
Last thing, let's talk a little bit about volleyball. A little bit of a disappointing season. It's funny because they were in so many of
Oh
those
yes.
games that they lost. They lost, 25-22 sets all over the place, and 27-24, things like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a frustrating season for them
How many
because they had
times
some
they
good
were
players.
leading sets, going into the second half of a set and just couldn't hold on. But again, they ended their season at the Southern Conference Tournament in Asheville. That's quite a little showcase over at the Harris Casino,
Harris Center, yeah.
whatever you call it now. I used to call it the Civic Center. That's
Civic
what I
Center.
call it. But Coach Kerry Glover's team beat the Citadel in that first round game and actually led number one seeded East Tennessee State in those quarterfinal games. The first two sets, they had big leads going into the second half of those sets. It just couldn't hold on and ended up losing to them. And Wofford actually pulled an upset to win the Southern Conference Championship for the second year in a row. So they knocked off the number one seed, East Tennessee State.
Yeah. Well, you had something. We talked briefly about maybe the skybox being completed. What are you seeing so far? And are there any changes to the plans, or is it just moving on schedule?
Well, once in a while, I'll stick my nose. I shouldn't be in there in the work site, but sometimes I'll get a conversation every once in a while with one of the workers, one of the guys that knows what's going on. And the last two times I've talked to him, says, "Yeah, they say we're a little bit ahead of schedule. We think we're, have this thing." One of them said, by no later than the end of July, 1st of August, which would be great. Get us time to get ready for the home opening football game next year. But yeah, that's all the exterior steel work seems to be in place. They're starting now to work on the flooring. The walls will be coming along soon. I'm sure they'd like to have that enclosed before the harsh winter comes in here.
Yeah.
and then you see the elevator shafts, which I'm looking forward to riding an elevator up there after thousands of trips to the old press box in Whitmire Stadium over the years. But yeah, it's impressive. It's going to be really a landmark look at our football stadium when you pull into the area now and you can see that skybox. It's very impressive, and it's going to be very functional and fill a lot of needs for our athletics program.
Well, I know you did your signature at the top of the
Yes.
stands there. And what I heard was you used a never dry marker, so it would bleed through and we'd actually see your name come through the drywall.
Well, they asked me if I
Not
wanted to ride
yeah.
up, to put that beam in place that I autographed at the very top beam, the last beam to go steel beam on the exterior. And I said, well, how will we get there? He said, well, you can just hold on to the cable as we pull that and sit on the steel beam. I said, I think I'll pass on that one.
Yeah, you see pictures of the guys building the Empire State Building in the
Yeah.
30s. So,
I'm too
all
old
right,
to
well,
do that.
I think that about wraps it up for this edition. As you heard, we'll be back in 2 weeks, I think, with Coach Sipsis, and we'll be talking girls basketball at that point. Y'all have a great Thanksgiving holidays. We are excited about going on FM weekly, WWCU, and also follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all your favorite channels for podcasts. We are brought to you as always by Stanberry Insurance, offices in Silva, Highlands, Waynesville, Clyde, and we will see y'all in 2 weeks on Tracking the Cats.